I stood in the lobby of Miller and Finch, a place I'd only ever seen in glossy magazine photos. This was the law firm my son had built from the ground up, built with my life savings as its foundation. And the receptionist, a young woman with a headset that seemed permanently attached to her ear, was looking at me as if I were a piece of lint on a cashmere coat, something to be flicked away. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone flat, her eyes never leaving the glow of her computer screen. "I'm here for the Thanksgiving dinner," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm Arthur Miller, Michael's father." She frowned, a small, irritated motion, as her fingers clicked across her keyboard. "I don't see an Arthur Miller on the guest list, sir. Are you sure you're supposed to be here? I like to realize that our community covers all corners of the world. One quick question. From which corner of the planet are you watching me? Write your country below, and let's see how far we've come together." 22 years. That's how long I'd stood in front of a classroom at Lincoln Park High, trying to make the elegant, beautiful logic of calculus make sense to teenagers. My own life had been an exercise in careful subtraction. I'd saved every spare dollar, living a life measured in coupons and sale racks. I'd lived in the same modest bungalow in Evanston for 30 years, a house filled with the ghosts of my late wife's laughter. I'd coaxed another year and then another out of an ancient 808 Honda Civic until the wheels practically wobbled in protest. All of it, every single quiet sacrifice, was so that my son, Michael, could walk the hallowed halls of Northwestern Law School without the anchor of debt around his neck, so he could clerk for a top firm, so he could eventually hang his own name on the door. And now, the gatekeeper to his kingdom didn't even know who I was. "I'm on the list," I said quietly. "Michael invited me personally." She let out a sigh that was a masterclass in a professional indifference and picked up her phone. "Mr. Miller, there's an Arthur Miller here for the dinner. He says he's with you." A pause. "All right." She hung up and, without a glance in my direction, pointed a perfectly manicured finger toward a bank of elevators. 15th floor. Someone will meet you." The elevator car was walled with mirrors. I caught my reflection and suddenly understood her skepticism. I was wearing my best sweater, a navy cardigan my daughter Emily had given me for Christmas last year. But set against the backdrop of polished marble floors and silent, expensive art, I looked exactly like what I was, a retired teacher who still shopped at Goodwill and got his hair cut for $10 at the local barber college. The elevator doors whispered open onto the 15th floor, and I stepped into a different reality. A wall of floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a jaw-dropping view of the Chicago skyline at dusk, the lights just beginning to glitter against the deep purple of the sky. Long tables were draped in white linen and laden with catered food, so artfully arranged it looked like it belonged in a museum. The room hummed with the easy confidence of at least 60 people, all of them dressed like they'd just stepped out of the pages of a high-end lifestyle magazine. "Dad?" Michael appeared at my elbow, his smile stretched a little too tightly across his face. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. His wife, Jessica, materialized beside him, a vision in a severe black dress and heels so high they made her tower over me. "You made it," Michael said, and his voice held a strange, unreadable current. Was it relief? Annoyance? In the bright, loud world he now inhabited, I could no longer tell. "I brought apple crumble," I said, holding up the Tupperware container like a peace offering. I'd made it that morning, using my wife Ellen's recipe. Michael used to be able to eat half the pan by himself as a boy. Jessica's gaze flickered to the plastic container and then away in a fraction of a second. But I saw it. A micro-expression of pure disgust. "How thoughtful," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "We'll just give this to the kitchen staff." She took the container from me using only her thumb and forefinger as if it were radioactive. "Let me show you to your table, Dad," Michael said, already guiding me through the throng. I followed him, an awkward satellite in his glittering orbit. People laughed and chatted, sipping wine from delicate, long-stemmed glasses. I recognized some of the faces from the firm's website photo. His partners, the associates, a city councilwoman. Michael led me past all of them, past the desirable tables near the windows, past the main table where his partners were holding court. He stopped at a small, round table, tucked away in a dimly lit corner, practically in the hallway that led to the restrooms. 3 other people were already sitting there, each of them radiating the same quiet discomfort that I felt. "Dad, this is table 14, Michael said. "I figured you'd be more comfortable here, a little less formal." I looked at the table. Little white cards were propped up against the water glasses. Mine said, "Arthur Miller, guest. Not father of the founder, not even Michael's dad. Just a guest. Anonymous." "Michael," I said slowly, keeping my voice down, "where are you sitting?" He gestured vaguely toward the front of the room, to a long, beautifully decorated head table that was clearly the room's center of gravity. "Up there, with Jessica and the partners. We've got some important clients here, too. Important people. You understand." I looked at the head table. "It's at 12. I saw Michael's 3 partners and their spouses, the councilwoman and her husband. That left 2 empty seats. "Those empty seats?" I said. "Who are those for?" Michael shifted his weight, a flicker of discomfort in his eyes. "Jessica's parents are flying in from New York. They're landing any minute." Something cold and heavy settled in my chest, a physical weight. Jessica's parents, whom I'd met for a total of 1 weekend at their wedding, were being given places of honor. I was being sent to table 14, the corner table, the one by the bathrooms. "I see," I said. It's a networking thing, Dad, business. You know how it is." But I didn't know. I'd spent my life in a world of absolute values and elegant proofs. I had never learned the ruthless algebra of social hierarchy, the calculus of who matters and who doesn't. "Sure," I said. "I understand." He looked immensely relieved. "Great. Dinner starts in 20. The bar is over there if you want a drink." He was already turning and walking away before I could respond, drawn back to the bright center of his universe. I sat down at table 14. My table mates were a collection of fellow misfits. Janet from the accounting department, Michael, an IT guy, and Patricia, the mother of Michael's assistant, who lived in a suburb nearby and looked just as confused to be there as I was. We made the kind of stilted, awkward small talk you make with strangers in a waiting room. I learned that Janet had been fighting for a promised raise for 6 months, that Michael had filed a safety complaint about faulty wiring that had been ignored, and that Patricia's daughter regularly worked 70-hour weeks and was barely acknowledged. I didn't tell them my story. I didn't tell them about the $340,000. 5 years ago, Michael had called me on a Tuesday night. I still remember the day because I was grading midterms and I almost didn't answer. "Dad," he'd said, and his voice was raw with a panic that terrified me. "I need your help." He wanted to leave his big firm and strike out on his own. He and 2 other lawyers were ready to make the leap, but they needed capital. They needed office space, equipment, staff, and enough operating cash to survive the first year. The bank would only loan them $200,000. They needed $500,000 to do it right. "How much do you need from me?" I'd asked. "I know it's a lot, Dad. I know you were saving that for retirement, but..." "How much, Michael?" $340,000. It was every dollar I had. It was my pension, which I'd just rolled over. It was the life insurance payout from when Ellen, my wife, had died. It was the small inheritance from my own parents. Every single cent I had managed to accumulate in 63 years of life. "I'll have it by Friday," I told him. "Dad, I'll pay you back. I promise. 5 years, maximum, with interest. I'll put it in writing." He'd sworn. He had. I had the promissory note in my safety deposit box. A 5-year term, 6% interest, with a single balloon payment at the end. The final amount came to $455,000, due this past November. just 2 weeks ago. I'd called him about it, just a friendly check-in. "Oh, right," he'd said, sounding distracted. "Listen, Dad, can we talk about that? The firm's doing really well, but we're in a growth phase. We just took out a loan to hire 3 new associates. If I pull out that much cash right now, it'll hurt our expansion." "Michael, that's my retirement money." I know. But look, what if we restructure? I'll pay you monthly. Same total amount, just spread over, let's say, 10 years. That's about $3,800 a month. Way more manageable. $340,000 today, or $3,800 a month for a decade. I may have been retired, but I could still do the math. It meant he would keep my life savings as his operating capital for another 10 years. If his firm failed, or if something happened to him, I'd be ruined. The note says balloon payment, Michael. That's what we agreed to. Dad, be reasonable. You don't even need that money right now. You've got your pension. You own your house. What are you going to spend $340,000 on? That's when I knew. He wasn't planning to pay me back. Not in any real way. I sat at table 14 watching him work the room when Jessica's parents arrived, looking like they were attending a state dinner. Michael rushed over, all charm and smiles, escorting them to the head table. I watched him pull out Mrs. Davenport's chair, pour Mr. Davenport a drink, and introduce them to the councilwoman. He never once looked toward table 14. Dinner was served. It was fancy and tasteless. I thought about my apple crumble, probably sitting in a garbage can. Across the room I could hear Mr. Davenport's booming laugh. He was telling a story about a Supreme Court justice. Everyone at the head table was captivated. After dinner, Michael stood to give a speech. He thanked his partners. He thanked his associates. He thanked his wife. He thanked his in-laws. He thanked the caterer. He did not mention me. I sat there in my secondhand sweater at the table by the bathrooms, and I felt something fundamental break inside me. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was colder than that. It felt like clarity. The speeches ended. People started to mingle again. I stood up, nodded to Janet and Michael and Patricia, and walked toward the elevator. Michael intercepted me in the hallway. "Leaving already?" he asked. "We haven't even cut the cake yet." I looked at my son. I really looked at him. When had he become this person? Or had he always been this person? And I'd just been too busy being a proud father to notice. "I need to ask you something," I said, and I want an honest answer. He glanced over his shoulder, worried someone important might see him talking to the help. "Sure, Dad. What's up?" "Were you ever planning to pay me back?" His face went carefully blank. "What are you talking about? I told you we'll restructure." "Michael, yes or no? Were you ever planning to give me back my money?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said it. "Dad, you have to understand, that money helped build something. This firm employs 18 people. We do pro bono work. We're making a real difference in yes or no." He looked at me, and I saw the truth in his eyes before he spoke. "You're my father," he said finally. "You're supposed to help me. That's what parents do." There it was. Not gratitude, not an apology, just pure, breathtaking entitlement. I nodded slowly. "I see. Thank you for your honesty." "Dad, don't be like this. It's Thanksgiving. Can't we just enjoy your dinner, Michael?" I walked to the elevator and pressed the button. He stood there watching me, but he didn't follow. The doors opened. I stepped inside Marantan. Just before they closed, I heard him call out, "Dad, wait!" The doors shut. I drove home in my old Honda through streets full of autumn leaves. I'd never felt so profoundly invisible in my life. When I got home, I sat in my kitchen and made a phone call. "Emily, it's Dad. I need your help with something." My daughter, who taught art at an elementary school, who lived in a tiny apartment she could barely afford, who'd somehow stayed kind despite it all, listened as I explained what I needed. "Dad," she said when I finished, "are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything." "Okay, I know someone, a lawyer. I'll text you her number." The lawyer's name was Grace Kowalski. She had a small office in a strip mall and charged a fraction of what Michael's firm would have. "You have a promissory note?" she asked, scanning the document. "Signed and witnessed, due November 30th. and he's refusing to pay. He wants to restructure. I don't want to restructure. I want my money. Grace looked at me over her reading glasses. Mr. Miller, I have to ask, is this your son? It is. And you understand that if we pursue this, it could damage your relationship permanently. I thought about table 14, about the name card that said guest, about Michael thanking the caterer, but not his father. I understand, I said. Okay then, she said, let's get started. The formal demand letter went out 3 chems later. Michael called me that evening. I didn't answer. He called 4 more times. Then Vanessa called. I didn't answer her either. Finally, he showed up at my house. I saw his BMW pull up and I almost didn't open the door. But I did. Dad, what the hell is this? He was waving the letter. You're suing me? I'm asking you to honor the agreement you signed. Over money? You're going to destroy our relationship over money? I looked at my son standing on the porch of the house where he'd grown up. You destroyed it the moment you seated me at table 14, I said quietly. That's what this is about, a seating arrangement? Dad, I explained. You seated your wife's parents at the head table, people you've met 3 times, but your father, who gave you everything he had, who made it possible for you to even have that firm, gets put in the corner by the bathrooms, like some stranger you're obligated to feed. That's not fair. It was a business dinner. I had to. You had 2 empty seats, Michael, 2, and you chose to fill them with them instead of me. That told me everything I needed to know about what I am worth to you. He was quiet for a moment. So you're really going to do this? Take me to court? Pay me what you owe me by November 30th, and there won't be any court. I don't have that kind of money just sitting around. Then I guess you'll have to figure it out. You're a lawyer. I'm sure you'll think of something. I started to close the door. Dad, wait, please, can we just talk about this? We are talking about it. I want my money. You have until November 30th. I closed the door. November 30th came and went. No payment. Grace filed the lawsuit on December 1st. Mark's response came through his own lawyer. They claimed the note was a gift, that I'd verbally agreed to restructure, that it would cause undue hardship. All lies, but well-written ones. This is going to get ugly, Grace warned. Are you prepared? I thought about his face at Thanksgiving, the relief when he thought he'd gotten away with it. I'm prepared, I said. The discovery process was brutal. They tried to prove I didn't need the money. They deposed Emily. But Grace was thorough. She had the note, the bank records, the emails. She even had a recording of our phone call where he'd asked to restructure. Michael had taught me years ago that Illinois was a one-party consent state. The irony wasn't lost on me. The trial was set for March. In February, they offered a settlement. $200,000. Tell them no, I told Grace. Tell them I want every dollar. $455,000, not a penny less. The trial lasted 3 days. Mark's lawyer painted me as a lonely old man acting out of spite. Then I took the stand. Grace walked me through it all, the loan, the promise, and the Thanksgiving dinner. Mr. Miller, Grace asked, why do you think your son seated you where he did? Michael's lawyer objected. The judge allowed it. I looked at my son. Because I was an obligation, I said. Not a father, just someone he had to feed like the caterer. I'd served my purpose. I'd given him the money. Now I was just in the way. The judge awarded me the full amount, plus costs and fees. The total came to $478,000. It nearly destroyed his firm. They had to downsize, sell their condo. I didn't feel good, but I didn't feel bad. I felt settled. I used the money to start a free tutoring center for local kids. We named it after my wife. Sarah volunteers there. It's the best thing I've ever done. Mark sent one email after the judgment. I hope you're happy now. I didn't respond. Emily asked me once if I regretted it. No, I told her. I spent my life teaching kids that actions have consequences. He's my son, which means I owe him the truth. And the truth is, you can't treat people like they're disposable just because they love you. Mom would be proud of you, she said. And for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe she was right. 2 years have passed. We haven't spoken. I heard he had a son. Sometimes I wonder if he'll teach his son about gratitude, about respect. But mostly, I don't think about him. I think about the kids at the center, about Emily and her wonderful fiancé, about the new life I'm building. A kid asked me last week why I did this. I told him what Ellen always used to say, because someday someone will help you, and you need to know what that feels like so you can do it for someone else. I don't know if Mark ever understood that. But I'm not his teacher anymore. I'm teaching kids who want to learn, who say thank you, who remember my name. And you know what? That's more than enough. What did you think of this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content coming your way.